What's up guys? Today I thought we'd take a look at one of the new Aerocool cases. This is the Aerocool Trinity. It's a mini tower case that costs around £40 and it's not too bad. So to start off, the Aerocool Trinity case comes in three different versions. This version is the number 2, V2, that they put on their website. The difference in versions really is around the fan systems that they actually provide in them. So the version 1 comes with 3 fans, 240mm in the front, 120 in the back, and they are non-RGB fans, they're just plain black ones. The version 2, which is this one, comes with the same amount of fans as 240s in the front and 120 in the back, but it's using a fixed RGB system. That means you can't change the colours of the lights, they don't actually move, they're just like a rainbow effect, and you're pretty much stuck with that. Whereas the version 3 actually comes with addressable RGB fans, same fan setup, but they're addressable, which means you can actually change colours and blend in with the theme. I tend to find that this version 2, unless you like the rainbow effect, you're pretty much stuck really with what you've got. So I personally would probably opt for the version 3 if I was to purchase it again, but it's fine the way it is, and the case is exactly the same on the build. As far as build goes, it's built pretty well. It's not as good as the other Aerocool cases that we've looked at in the past. It seems like it's pretty much a revamp of some previous system, or that's the way it feels. But we'll take a look around and we'll show you what is actually built into this case. So to start with, on the front, you have a front panel which has kind of a mesh front. It's actually just a pure plastic panel, and if we take it off, we can show you that. Simply clips off. So it's a little bit awkward because it's a pure black plastic front. Now the front is just plastic all the way through, it's an ABS plastic, and they give you a bit of a dust guard in the front, but you can't actually, well, I can't seem to find a way of removing that dust guard, so you just have to wipe it down and clean it through that way. As you can see, for the front you've got your 240mm fans. Now these fans are pretty much set to the colour, and they're also set to the speed. There's no way of actually adjusting the speed on this, so you're pretty much stuck with a constant and continuous flow of air through, which isn't too bad for the system that you'll build into this, but again, you won't actually be able to customise it very well yourself. The front simply just clicks back on as any other case front does, but it's worth being aware that even though it's got a few of these pieces of designs in the front, it's actually these triangles that are really going to give it any kind of effect. On the top you've got a pretty much standard layout of I/O with your USB, your power switch and your reset. Now because this is version 2, there is no way of changing the lights, so there's no actual LED button or any built-in controller on that. The side that you can see through is a tempered glass panel, and it's held in by 4 thumb screws. If I remove them there, we can have a look at the panel and show you what you get. So there's nothing actually fancy about this panel. There's no actual black trim round, so you will see the edge of the case, but it does have a slight tinted effect to it, and when you pull the plastic off, that tinted effect comes a little bit lighter, so you can actually see your components in there. It's not too dark, which isn't bad. Internally, I've built a test system into this so you can see what's actually going in here at the moment. This is a micro ATX board. The case itself pretty much works with any ITX or micro ATX case motherboard, but you're not going to fit anything that's a full ATX. It does have a dual chamber system, so the power supply is mounted down here, but in true fashion, the label on this power supply, which is also an Aerocool one, doesn't actually line up with the hole, so you may want to actually vinyl wrap the side of your power supply if you're really into that much of the aesthetics more than anything. Apart from that, you've got plenty of space to put fans. The front will take up to the 240mm and also 220mm, as well as a 280 or a 240 radiator with the fans being fit on the outside, as well as 220mm fans down here for your graphics card and 2 in the top. The top doesn't have any kind of dust filtration, and it kind of feels as though it was more of an afterthought, where they've just imprinted a lot of holes in the top with some little screw indents. But apart from that, it'll work, and particularly if it's going to be an exhaust, you won't have to worry too much about the dust anyway. But if you are going to make it an input, then you probably need to worry about some kind of dust filtration there. You can get extra dust filters. You can buy them simply from eBay, which attach to the fans first, and then you can mount them, so it's probably not a problem. As a system, it's not too bad. It was very easy to build into. Cable management probably isn't going to be the nicest thing in this case. There's not a lot of room really to put anything. But in your dual chamber system, you do have space for additional hard drives. In particular, if we just turn this off, we can show the other side. In particular, on the rear, you've got pretty much the standard layout. You've got your 120mm fan base there, your I/O ports, your PCI Express slots. Now there's only 4 because this is a mini tower more than anything, and your power supply obviously goes in the basement. If we take the other side off and take a look at the back, it pretty much comes off with 2 thumb screws, which is pretty standard for any of the Aerocool stuff now. You can see in the back that there isn't much of an indent for any kind of cable management. They do give you a lot of these little pegs to be able to put your cable ties and things on, and they're pretty much everywhere on that back plate. But there's no real indentation, so you've got to make sure that your wiring is flat enough. Now, I've not actually wired up anything with this setup with any additional Molex needed, so you could potentially cut down on the wiring that you need if you're going to do that by using a semi-modular or a modular power supply. But because this power supply isn't, I've had to tuck everything just underneath there. Now there is room on the back here to be able to mount a 2.5-inch hard drive onto the back there, or there is a little caddy that comes out in the bottom, and you can simply undo it using thumb screws at the bottom that will fit 2 2.5-inch drives or 2 3.5-inch drives. So there's plenty of space to be able to put hard drives on there. Obviously this motherboard's using an M.2 drive straight on the motherboard, so I've not had to actually populate any of that. If you look at these cables in the back, the fan system just basically used a string of Molexes, which is why you can't actually plug them onto the motherboard or get any kind of PWM different type, different speeds really of fans. They're pretty much set as they are, but you can pretty much just replace all the fan systems anyway. And if you're going to do that, it's worth making sure that you bake that into the price. So this is the Aerocool Trinity version 2. Let me know in the comments if you've got one of these cases. Tell me your experience in it. I've not actually built a system into one of these really as something that's going to stay. This is just a temporary system which I managed to just do a little bit of cable management on. I'm sure when I use it for something a little bit more permanent, I'll put a little bit more effort into the cable management. Make sure you subscribe to the channel because we're going to be using this case to actually build a bit of a permanent build into it later on. And subscribing, you'll make sure that you get to watch that video too. And make sure that you hit like on this video if you like the demonstration.